Good morning. This is Sue O'Hanlon, and I am here to bring you a word of refreshment from scriptures. And this is recorded for October 23rd, 2024. So I want to talk to you today. First, I'm going to read something from 1 Peter. I had somebody in my office the other day that was saying, it seems like every week something goes wrong. Or every day something goes wrong. And I kind of shook my head like, I get that. I get that. I always attribute that to the fallen world, that we don't live in a perfect world. Sin entered the world and it's not the way it should be. So I was reflecting on that. And what is a Christian to do with that? 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6 says, Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him, for he cares for you. And that's a goal, to cast all of our anxieties on him. It's hard sometimes, right? But then there's this part after that. It goes on and says, be alert and sober-minded. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him. Stand firm in the faith. So that's what I want to talk about. There really is an enemy of our soul, according to Scripture. I don't see a devil behind every rock. But I am aware that there is one who does not want us to experience the joy of the Lord. He doesn't want us to. And I don't exactly know how he does it all, but I know that I want to stand firm against that. And thinking about that, Romans 8:28 says God causes all things to work together for those who are called according to his name. We say, yeah, I know, but it doesn't feel good, right? Then I was reminded of Joseph and his journey through life. I did this one time for, I think it was, some children's thing I was teaching. And it was back in the day when there was still the computer paper that had the little lines that divided the pages. I think it was called tractor feed computer paper. And I took that tractor feed computer paper and there was a wall. We used to have this room called the conference room. It's now, I think, the family room maybe. But that room, I had all the kids in there and I put it all the way around the wall, and each square showed one piece of Joseph's life. It was a great exercise for me because it showed me the ups and downs of Joseph's life. And I just want to talk to you about it really quick. It's a great study. I'm not going to go into it, but I want to just hit the highlights because it kind of sounds like that person in my office. Something seems to keep going wrong. Joseph was the most loved of his father. He was the youngest. He was the child of his old age. And his father made him this beautiful ornate robe, and his brothers were jealous. So one day they see him. He's going out to check on his brothers. His father sends him and go and check on his brothers in the fields. And it says that they hated him. And they devised a little scheme. Let's just kill him. And then there was maybe we shouldn't kill him. Maybe we should just throw him in a cistern. And then Reuben suggested that so that he could come back and rescue him. He had some compassion. Somewhere Reuben's not with the crowd and they decide there's a group of, merchants or something that come through and let's just sell him. So they sell him and then they take his robe and they dip it in blood, goat blood, and they tell their dad that he was killed. And their dad is just heartbroken and mourning, and Joseph gets carried off into slavery. But God shows favor to him, and because he excels in what he does, he ends up a servant in Potiphar's house. And then Potiphar's wife accuses him of being improper with her. And he gets thrown in prison. And then in prison, you see the up and down of his life. In prison, he he interprets the dreams. There's a couple of the people from the king that have been thrown in prison, and they have dreams, and he interprets them, and they're correct. They come true. And eventually, I'm not going to go through the whole story, but it gets back to the king. The king needs a dream interpreted, and so he calls on Joseph. Joseph interprets the dream. Joseph ends up in charge of, he's like second in command in the country. King is actually Pharaoh. He's the one that's distributing the wheat because he saw in the dream that there was going to be a famine. And he's distributing the wheat, and that's actually what saves the people of Israel. They come to him for wheat so that they can survive, for grain so they can survive. That's a very quick overview, and I'm sure I got a few parts a little out of context, but you can read that whole story. The part I want to tell you is there's this one verse where the brothers don't realize that Joseph is their brother, this man who is bestowing on them life with giving them grain, and he reveals himself, and they're afraid, and he says, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God?" And then he says, "You intended this for harm, but God intended this for good." And that's like the enemy. He intends things for harm, but God will use them for good. And if we have that perspective, it doesn't always feel good. I'll just tell you, at least in my life. If you figured out that secret, come tell me, please. But he can use all the circumstances of our life if we submit to him. And he can teach us, and he can grow us, and he can bless us, even in the hard places. So I've known a lot of hard places, so I've had a lot of practice. Sometimes, I mean, I don't ever like the hard places, actually. I can't say I never get anxious, but I try to quickly remember, no, Lord, you'll take care of this. This isn't mine. The hard places that come, I just try to turn over to the Lord and look for his work in them. So this is a true confession that I said I would not do during the refresh. I had a little oopsie car accident not too long ago, about a month ago. It's totally my fault. It was just a little bump, but it caused more damage inside the car than realized, etc., as things always happen. Now, I'm not saying that God caused it, and I'm not saying that the enemy caused it, but in turning it over to God and remembering this is just an accident. In our family, I always told my husband and the kids, this is not a purpose. This is an accident. That's why we call it an accident. I got distracted by a fire, but it was an accident. And out of that accident, I met somebody, and we developed this young gal, and we developed, she's I say young because anybody my kids' ages and, around there is I consider young, not kids. But this woman, and I developed a little relationship with her. And I was able to bless her in the middle of it. Now, I don't know her side of the story, what that blessing was like, but that's what she's told me. In the process, she ended up blessed. So, am I willing to let God do whatever he wants in my life to further the kingdom? I've told him that I am. When the bumps of life hit, it does not feel good. But I try to call to God and ask him to keep me steadfast to him and thanking him for the good things. Nobody got hurt in this little accident. And I have a new friend. So I always ask whoever I run into in the day, Lord, help me to be a blessing and an encouragement. And I have told the Lord I didn't mean literally. Again, I don't think God caused the accident. I don't think the enemy caused the accident. But the enemy tried to use it to discourage me, and God used it for good. That's just such a little example. We all have examples like that in our lives where we can allow him to turn our hard places into good. Places that grow us, places that encourage someone, places that give him glory. So I hope this has been a blessing to you today. And I just want to encourage you and me to always take it back to Jesus and ask him, what do you want me to know, and how do you want to use this in my life and in someone else's? You have a great week. Thanks. Bye.